Hello lovely book dragons and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Joana and I love to talk about books on this channel, specifically fantasy books, but now I do put in other genres into my reading as well. Welcome to my June wrap up. So in my last video, or one of my last videos, I don't know what order I'm going to upload these in because life is a mystery, isn't it? In one of my latest videos, hey, I'm back, here's what's been going on in my life. I told you that I was going to do a separate June wrap up because I read a lot of books in June compared to what I'd been reading, not compared to what some of y'all read, but compared to what I'd been reading. I've read a lot in June and I want to do a separate wrap up for that. So here is said wrap up. In the month of June, I read 9 things. I did read quite a few novellas. I read 1, 2, 3 novellas, 1 graphic novel. So it's not like I read huge tomes, but it was more than I'd been reading and that made me freaking happy. So let's talk about them. The first book I finished in the month of June was Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. If you've seen that wrap up, I talked about reading Finlay Donovan is Killing It in one of the months in March, and I really loved it. And then I decided that it was time to continue with Finlay's story, and it did not disappoint. I gave it 4 stars again. I love these books. These are cozy mysteries about Finlay Donovan, and she is an author. And in the first book, she kind of gets in a situation because she's pitching her novel to her agent at a cafe, and then someone overhears her and thinks, hey, she's a hit woman for hire. So she slips her telephone number and a job into her purse, and Finlay kind of gets stuck in this murders that are happening, and she's considering killing this person because of all the money that is at stake. And it's just it's a comedy of errors from beginning to end, and it's just hilarious. And the second book is no different. We follow Finlay after the effects of the first book and what happened in that book. And then how she kind of gets caught up in another situation where there's more murdering of crazy husbands happening, of bad husbands happening, and another comedy of errors from beginning to end. I just love them. Audiobooks for these books are so great and I just love it. I gave it, like I said, 4 stars. I had such a good time with it. If you need something fun, something cozy in your life, I would definitely recommend the Finlay Donovan books and the Aunties books by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I think that's the author. The Dial A for Aunties and For Aunties and a Wedding. These books are so fun. I love them and I want more of these kinds of books in my life because they're just so refreshing and such a good palate cleanser. After that, I decided that there was a book that came out last year and I was so looking forward to it. And I wanted to do a vlog of books of 2010, books that came out in 2021 that I didn't get to. And then because I wasn't filming, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick this book up because I feel like it at the moment. And I don't want to postpone reading a book that I'm really in the mood for, since I hadn't really been in a reading mood for so long. I was like, I'm going to read this because I'm in the mood for it. The book is there. I'm going to read it. And that was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was really nervous going into this one because it is, of all the books set in her famous people sub-series of her books, because she has these books that are I think people call them the Decades books, and then she has her regular romance books. And from the Decades books, Malibu Rising has had the most mixed reviews. People either love or hate Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn Hugo is really a little bit mixed. Most people love Evelyn Hugo, but then some of them don't. And then Daisy Jones is mostly well loved, and then Malibu Rising is mostly not so loved. A lot of people were disappointed by it. So I was really nervous going into Malibu Rising because of how much I love Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones. And to be honest, I think this book was right book, right person, right time. It was just a perfect combination. I flew through this book. I absolutely loved it. I have so many tabs in that book. I have highlighted so many quotes in that book. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I just couldn't put it down. I loved it. I didn't even have an audiobook, and this was the first physical book that I was able to sit down with and just read since March. That's how much I love this book. And I will always remember that this is the first book since what happened in March that I was able to just sit down and focus on a book without having the audiobook with it. And I loved it. I loved it so much. Nina Riva was so relatable to me in so many aspects. There's a line where she's like, all I want to do is move to Portugal. And I'm like, girl, let's go. I'll go with you. If you were real in my lifetime, I would have gone with you. I will go with you. And just, I don't know, there's so many quotes that are so relatable to me. Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is just something that meshes with me. I feel like she has so many interesting thoughts that she puts in her books, and I just love it. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. Basically, the pitch of the story is we follow the Riva siblings, and each year at their Malibu mansion, they have this huge, big party. And at the beginning of the book, you know that by the end of the night, the mansion is going to be burnt to a crisp, and everything's going to be gone. And then you see the countdown from the beginning of the day to the end of the day where the fire happens, before the party to the end of the party, where the shenanigans have happened. But you also have a dual timeline which I love about her books. You have the dual timeline where you get to hear the story about the Riva family, because if you hear the name Riva, maybe that should spark a thing in you. If you've read her other books, Mick Riva is kind of the thing that kind of binds all these books together. So these are Mick Riva's kids with a woman named June, and then you go back and see June and Mick's relationship when they start, and how the kids are born, and how all of that happens. So you have the dual timeline of like the beginning of the relationship between Mick and June, and then the kids being born and raised and all of that, and then this party. And I just loved it. 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Then I was traveling, and my copy of Under One Roof came through. Well, I mean, it had come through in May, and I'd started in May, but then I read only the prologue and I never finished it. And I was like, hey, I'm still reading that novella by Ali Hazelwood. And so I picked it up and finished it in the month of June. This one is the first one in her STEMinist novellas, which are short stories of friends that are women in STEM. And this one is about a forced proximity, as in our main character inherits part of a house, and the grumpy, it's kind of like the grumpy sunshine trope. The hero also inherits part of the house, and then they have to live together, and he wants to buy her out, but she doesn't want to be bought out because she wants to live there. And then they kind of come together and romance ensues. I mean, it's a very short novella. If you want to read it. It's Ali Hazelwood. It's something that I've now noticed with her books, is that you often have a trope that I'm not a big fan of, and I hope that she eventually writes something different, which is the guy is huge and the girl is so tiny and quaint and just like, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. That it happens in all of her books. I mean, if it happens in one book, I don't even notice, but it's all of her books. And at this point, I'm kind of like with it, but I did really like it. I gave it, I think I gave it 3 stars. Yeah, it was fine. It was a short romance novella, and it was cute, and I liked it. Then, because I read Malibu Rising, and I was just so Taylor Jenkins ready, I just wanted to get back into more Taylor Jenkins read. I'd reread Daisy Jones last year in June, and I thought, you know what book I haven't reread in a freaking long time and wanted to annotate and never did? Evelyn Hugo. So I reread The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my all-time favorite books in general. In this book, we follow our main character Monique, who is a journalist, and one day she arrives at work and she gets told by her boss, you were requested by Evelyn Hugo to write a piece on her dresses that she's selling, that she's auctioning off for charity. And Monique is like, why me? Because I'm just a nobody in this company. I'm not a prominent journalist. And Evelyn Hugo is a very prominent woman. Evelyn Hugo was a big Hollywood star in the 50s and 60s, and I think even the 70s. And she was the woman, like the Hollywood woman, the glitz, the glam. She had it all. And she's mostly known for having 7 husbands. And for a while, she's been completely gone off the media. Like, she doesn't talk to any media outlets or anything at all until she comes forward and wants to auction off her dresses for charity. And she asks Monique to write the piece. So we see the story as Monique and Evelyn come together to write this piece, and then turns out that Evelyn actually doesn't want her to write a piece about the dresses at all. She wants her to write her book, a book about her life and about the 7 husbands and who her true love really was. And this is such a beautiful book about belonging, about changing who you are to fit in, because Evelyn Hugo is a Cuban bisexual woman who had to hide every single aspect of her identity, whether it be the Cuban side where she had to dye her hair blonde, and the bisexual, of course, in the 50s. How would people have reacted if this woman who was famous for having 7 husbands and for being a sex symbol, how would they have reacted knowing that she also loved a woman and that her one true love was a woman? So that is just the pitch of the story. I love this book so much. Like I said, I highlighted so many quotes. I just had such a wonderful time rereading this book and just spending time with these characters again, and I loved it. Speaking of the one true love of someone's life, I read One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid after this. I was still in my like Taylor Jenkins Reid mood. My audiobook for Daisy Jones hadn't come in because I wanted to read Daisy Jones. So then I decided, you know what, this one is unscripted, and this is not part of her decades books, but it is part of just like her contemporary romances that she writes. I've read almost every single one of them. There's only Forever Interrupted that I haven't read now. And One True Loves was one that I hadn't read yet, so I decided to pick it up. I was participating in mini TBR Star Hop, hosted by Stephanie, and I read this basically in like a day. And in this one, we follow our main character who, when she was young, she had 2 guys in high school that she kind of liked. There was this one guy that worked at the bookstore that her parents had, and he kind of asked her out, and she said no because she was really interested in this football player. And he was also interested in her, so they started dating, and then they have this romance, and they're really happy together. They get engaged and they get married. So this other guy is kind of forgotten, never talked about again, because she's really happy in her love life. She's really happy in the life that she's created for herself. She really wanted to escape this small town, which she has done. She's been traveling the world with her husband. They're so happy. They're just living the dream that they have always wanted to dream, until the day before their 1-year wedding anniversary. He disappears on a hike in the mountains and is presumed dead, because no bodies have been found, like, or some bodies have been found, but like no bodies that are alive have been found. And it's been over 2 years since this happened, and since this accident, and her husband died. So we see that how she had to struggle to get through her grief, and go through the grieving process, and get back on her feet, and move back to this small town, because that's where her family is. That's where you find the support. And then we see as she reconnects with the other guy from her childhood, or from her teenage years, that was interested in her. And we see that they strike up a romance, and they are very happy together, and eventually they get engaged. And as she's engaged to this other man, her husband calls her, "Hey honey, I survived. I'm back. I'm back on land. I'm coming home." And so it's the story of, she has a fiance, she has a husband. Which one is her one true love? And I really like this one. Not as much as I like the Decades books, but I liked it. It was really cute. It was really fun. And I just really liked seeing how the story unfolds. So I give this one 4 stars. The next thing I read was in the vein of TBR Star Hop. I needed to get through the books to make sure that I didn't get into a black hole or only roll once. And that was the Tea Dragon Festival, which is the sequel, or one of the books in the Tea Dragon books by Katie O'Neill. I mean, this is super cute. These is about little tea dragons. It's super cute. It was a quick read. I gave it 5 stars just because of how wholesome it is. And then to finish out the readathon, I read A Dead Djinn in Cairo. To be honest, I probably need to reread this. I don't think my mind was completely in it. I listened to the audiobook. I didn't remember that I had it on Kindle. I need to reread it as an immersion read, I think, because I really think I missed a lot of the magic and everything that was happening. It's very, very short, but I feel like I missed a lot of what was going on and what was important. So I gave it 3 stars when I read it, but I don't think it's very justified. I need to go back and reread it. Maybe it is a 3 stars, but I do need to go back and reread this one. Then I read a book that I'd been hearing Books and Lala talk about, and most recently Mel over at Mel Reads. She was doing a reading vlog, and she read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead, I think it is. And I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to read that book for so long. I have it on my Kindle. The audiobook is on Scribd. What is holding me back? The answer is absolutely nothing. Plus, I forgot to mention in my update that I did get the disease that shall not be named. And so I was sick in bed with the disease that shall not be named. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? The lights are all off. I have it on my Kindle. I have the audiobook. I'm going to read this. And I read it within like a 24-hour period. Like I read it in a day. This is the story of our main character, whose name I've forgotten for some reason, and she goes back to her 10-year, I think, college reunion, and she wants to go back and prove to everybody that she made it. You know, she's the one. She has these like daydreams of people looking at her and be like, wow, she's so pretty now, wow, she's so successful. And she goes back and she wants to wow all of her friends. And back then they had like this group of 7 friends that were really, really close together, and they were like the 7, you know, like everyone looked at them and like, oh, they are the East House 7. They were known for being this entity. However, what happened 10 years ago is that one person in their group was murdered, and they didn't really catch who did it. There was suspicions of that girl's boyfriend doing it, who was also part of the East House 7. And so as they come back to this reunion, people start talking and realizing that some people have more information than they gave 10 years ago, and then we're starting to kind of want to figure out who actually murdered this girl 10 years ago, and which one of the East House 7 did the deed. And so it was really, really cool. I really like this book. Like the main characters are all unlikable because they've all done horrible things, but I don't know, it was just so compelling. I just couldn't put it down. I just kept on reading and reading and reading and listening to the audiobook, and I was just always going until it was done, and I really loved it. And I give it 5 stars because I've read a few mystery thrillers now that I was just really disappointed with the why of the story, or the how it was done, or who done it. I just didn't like those things. And in this one, I liked everything. I mean, it probably isn't perfect, but it just For me, it was, again, right book, right person, right time. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And the final book I read in the month of June was the second book in the STEMinist novellas by Ali Hazelwood, and that one is called Stuck With You. Here we follow our main character and her, like the hero and the heroine. I need to start using romance terms. The hero and the heroine get stuck in an elevator, and we, again, as it's been the case for the first and the second, I haven't read the third one yet, but so far in the STEMinist novellas, we always have dual timelines, and so we follow the timeline of them being stuck in the elevator, and they are in a fight, like they're not really on speaking terms, but you do follow the dual timeline from 3 weeks ago when they met, they got to know each other, and they had a very steamy night together. And so you wonder what happened from 3 weeks ago to now that they're not talking, and then you see that kind of unfolding. Again, I liked this one. I thought it was really cute. Did I like it more than the first one? No, I think I liked the first one better just because I felt that this one hinged a lot on the miscommunication trope, and I didn't like that at all. And the first one has that a little bit, but not, it's different. There's other things that propel the conflict between them, the hero and the heroine further. Here it's just really like a miscommunication trope, so I didn't really like that. I did give it 3 stars because I liked other things more about this one that I didn't like so much about the first one. So it's not the same 3 stars, but I did prefer the first one, and I will be reading the last one in their STEMinist novellas very soon because I just got it on my Kindle, so I'm excited to see how this one wraps up. So that's it. That's everything I read in the month of June. I'm so happy that I'm back in my reading mojo. I just absolutely, I don't know, I'm just so happy to be reading again. July has already been a good reading month. I mean, I've been a bit more busy with work and stuff, so I haven't been reading a ton, but I've been reading a lot more, and I'm back into fantasy, guys. Like, I'm back into reading fantasy, and that just makes me so freaking happy. I'm finally back. I am so excited. And yeah, that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you're doing great and that you're taking care of yourself. And until next time, happy reading.